Welcome back to Athletic Conceptual Training, where we speak to leaders and we talk to the most innovative and top minds in veterinary medicine with the background of the discipline of sports. Today, I am your host with my co-host and the wonderful Katelyn Warford, RVT, CPC, and our guest today, Ron Sosa.
Hello.
Most people, hello. Okay, there you go. Most people look at leadership in veterinary medicine and think success is about working hard, pushing through, and holding everything together. But what if the very traits that make someone successful are also the ones quietly burning them out? Today's conversation is one that lots of people in this industry feel but don't always have language for. We're talking about high-performing leaders, who they look like they have it all together, and on the outside but internally are dealing with burnout, overfunctioning, and consistently second-guessing themselves. And more importantly, what happens when leadership systems were always built for how your brain works? Today, I'm joined by someone who brings a completely different lens to leadership in veterinary medicine.
We're so excited to have Ron Sosa here today, who's a Neuroinclusive Leadership Coach, Executive Director of Uncharted Veterinary Conference, and host of the Left Unattended Podcast. Ron works with high-achieving neurodivergent professionals to help them reduce burnout, build sustainable systems, and lead in a way that actually fits who they are, not what's expected of them. Ron, welcome to Athletic Conceptual Training Podcast today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. This is such a meaningful topic and something I really am passionate about and care about and really want to bring forward to the industry because I think it needs it.
Yes.
Yeah. On paper, you had the career that most people are chasing, executive roles, leadership success. But behind the scenes, you've talked about how much energy it took to hold it all together. What was really happening during that time that people couldn't see?
Yeah, I think, my career's been like a roller coaster of, starting off, I entered an ad on Craigslist and became a CSR for a corporate veterinary hospital. So I landed into veterinary medicine very strangely. And, I think that when you're good at systems and good at, pattern recognition, it was like, oh, great, you can now do inventory. Oh, great, now you can manage the practice for me, or now you can do the next thing. And so I think what happens is you can be really good at something, get promoted. Like we see this all the time. I work with a lot of practice managers, and I can't tell you how many times I have heard, I went on vacation and I found out when I came back, I got voted in as practice manager, right? It just blows my mind.
Yeah.
And I think that the things that make us good at whatever it is aren't always the same things that make us good as leaders, right? And so leadership almost asks you to wear a mask in a way, right? You have to look cool, calm, and collected. You have to have all the answers. You have to, bring all of these initiatives down. You can't really falter, or else your people are going to, review you under a microscope. And when you start shaving off those pieces of identity of who you are and how you operate and how you truly function best, I think that you start to become somebody else, and then that actually wears you down, right? For me, that is very much the part of neurodiversity in veterinary medicine that we don't really talk about. Is not only do we have identity erosion from making veterinary medicine our entire personality, our entire identity, but now we have loss of ourself, our authentic self, because we are shaping who we are to be as leaders, or who we expect the world that we need to be, right? The shoulda, coulda, woulda of how we need to lead people. So we're looking at past leaders, we're looking at people in our industry who are executive leaders and looking at them and go how do they lead people? That's how I have to be. Therefore, this is how I should be. And I think that's number one mistake.
Yeah.
Love that insight 100%. And one thing that you really touched in is the masking, because of comparing on what, we perceive is, seeing who we think is successful. And a lot of the time, those stories aren't really true. Those are just highlight reels, of course, of like, we assume there's success there, but really that masking and stuff down, like deep down. And I know a lot of us have dealt with it when just in general, when we feel like we have to put on a facade, that we feel empty inside, like we feel very disconnected. But one thing that you also, and that's where I feel like a lot of burnout comes from, is that. But yeah, I love everything you just said on that aspect.
Yeah. So to answer your question, there's a lot of energy that it takes for you to hold up that mask, right? To look and appear cool, calm, and collected, to make it look like you're really good and calm in every complex situation. Like the amount of energy it takes just to simply look like a confident leader is exhausting, right? And so now you come home and you're completely done, and you may have good work-life balance on paper, and it is not at all, because when you get home, you have no energy for your family, your kids, or whoever is waiting for you, or even yourself, right? There's no self-care, just because that energy is gone. And so I went through that with my own career, and really like had a tipping point where I yelled at my team. Like I never, ever wanted to yell at my team, and never wanted to be that leader that did that. And I had a moment where I yelled at my team, and I'll never forget it. And it's what made me look back and like, what am I actually struggling with? Like, why can't my team see my struggles? Like, why can't I have more open, transparent leadership? And that was really the day that all of it changed for me.
I really want to ask about that, because that is something that I would argue is huge in veterinary medicine, and what you just talked about is something that I think more leaders need to understand, right? Because those silent pressures, being able to not take it home with you, is really difficult to do. And as you were sitting there, as you were talking, and Katelyn was talking, I imagined myself, and I'll quickly give a example of what I think this is. I traveled around the world a lot, right? And this is in no way about race or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But when we talk about masking, number one, then we'll tackle leadership second. But coming into a new environment and being the only one, you try to figure out, how do I fit in this environment?
Yeah.
Without actually having a roadmap. And I think that's what it's like sometimes in leadership in veterinary medicine, right? You get, like you said, you get promoted into this position, and now you're saying, okay, what do I need to be to meet the bare minimums so I can figure out what's next, right? Yeah. And then I think that's where that masking and that frustration and the moment that you've had, and quite frankly, I've had, but it was less about the people, but more so about the inability. And it's huge that you said that, and I don't want to just glaze by it. The inability to voice your own struggles in a safe environment. I mean, I've been in the corporate and in the private, and very different, but similar in the ways of this pressure to be something that you're not, or to say I can't and I need, is not there.
Yeah. So you take that mask of leadership, right, that you just have to have, and which is a very isolating position in a veterinary practice, because when you're a technician or a CSR, or even an associate veterinarian, you tend to have lateral positions next to you that you can vent to, that you can talk to. When you're in a leadership position, almost everybody is underneath you except for maybe the practice owner, unless you are the practice owner. And in that case, it's like you have nobody else to really talk to about the situation in your vicinity. And yes, we can build community, and we can network, and we can find those people. But at the end of the day, like, you don't have that person next to you. Right? So it is very much a lonely situation. And then you add on to your point earlier, an intersectionality of marginalization, that can be heavier, right? So somebody like me, and I'll just put it out there, as somebody with who is ADHD and also autistic and is a gay man, like there's layers and layers of that. As somebody who wears hearing aids and has struggle hearing, like there's another layer of that, of not always wanting to say right? Like trying to fit into the conversation, trying to know socially what's acceptable to fit into that conversation. marginalization, on top of being a leader, which is a whole nother mask, then that's the energy that we don't look at, right? That's the invisible strain that we talk about, because all of that, right? And I'm just one. I'm sure there's many other people that have multiple layers of marginalization and intersectionality than I do. Being female, and we know females dominate this, that's still just a marginalized community just in and of itself, right? So there's already a layer of that in vet med that we have to deal with.
Why do you think vet med is so reluctant to giving help?
We are the helpers, right? Like, we probably have gone into this profession to help, right? To talk for the voiceless, to help medicine-wise. When I went in and I fell into it, it was like, oh wow, this is amazing that we get to talk for those who can't talk. So I think there's part of that. Part of it is, for me, the safety and the human-animal bond, right? Like, to give back to something that gives to me is pretty big. So I think we are helpers by nature. If we start to look at some of the statistics out there in veterinary medicine, and it's pretty shaky, right? I don't want to hang my hat on these stats because it's just brand new information. It's not a very well documented study quite yet. But the RCVS in the UK put out their study from 2024 and said that 29.8% of the respondents of their survey resonated with being neurodivergent, right? And so that's already potentially double the density of the population outside. It's like 15 to 20% or 10 to 15%, depending on what the studies you see out there. They're a little all over the place. But if we look at that and let's just assume that's 100% true and the study is well done, which we need more to, then we have almost double the population density, which says that we have more people masking, right? And if you consider the fact that our hospitals are female dominated, right? And we know that women aren't diagnosed earlier on, right? Because the two times we're most likely to be diagnosed are when they've had a child and their child is struggling and they recognize the struggles as their own and they go, oh my gosh, light bulb moment, this is probably me too. Or at perimenopause, when all of the scaffolding and coping mechanisms have fallen apart, estrogen changes, dopamine changes, and the whole world is different. And so there's the two times that we know women are diagnosed properly. So if we consider the fact that even 30% saying yes, and knowing that most women are not diagnosed properly or even know that they are, that's a huge population in veterinary medicine. I've talked to Dr. Jody Wilson out of Australia, and she has said that in her research, and she's an academic researcher now, and DBM, she is seeing closer to 50% of veterinary populations in general practice is neurodivergent, and closer to 70% for emergency professionals. So not surprising, but when you start to consider all of that mental health advice, all of the wellness and the resilience talk that we do in vet med, and you're asking somebody who is high masking, they're just going to go along with what you tell them to do because that's the way they should be doing it. Doesn't mean that's actually what's going to work for them. And I still think that we're inadvertently hurting a lot of the professionals in vet med.
You were speaking to me there because I was like, I was diagnosed, when my son was 3, and I was like, what is going on in my world right now for ADHD? And I was like, something's not right. So that speaks. So, and that's something that once I became diagnosed too, kind of realized there's a theme within the field as well. And like you're saying, those numbers, even though if they're not, 100% accurate or whatever, the studies are still being worked on and all of that, but those high numbers are not surprising to me at all, especially in the ER I currently work at. I feel like we all in some way have some of that, and it's crazy to think that our systems are still built on neurotypical minds. And
I think of the systems we built in practice is very much the trolley scenario. If you two are familiar with the trolley scenario, it's the ethical dilemma of the trolley is coming down the tracks, right? It's raging down the tracks, and 5 people are tied up on the main track, and you have the power to hit the switch to go on the side track, but there's 1 person tied up on the side track. What do you do, right? To me, that's very much in parallel with how we run our workplaces. It's let's divert the main track, right, and go to the side track to save many more. But the problem is we're still leaving out a whole subset of people within our practices. And more likely, we're probably hitting the main track because we have a high population density of neurodivergent individuals. And so the people on the sidetrack need to ask for an accommodation. They need to tell you, I'm struggling. They need to tell you what their diagnosis is, which is shameful in and of itself because there's still stigma around this. Whether it's autism, dyslexia, dyscalculia, for a veterinary technician to be able to say they have dyscalculia, which is like the inability to work with numbers, like you're going to be told that you're in the wrong field. And many of the technicians I've talked to have been said that, they've said, hey, I had a manager tell me I'm in the wrong field because I can't work with numbers. And I don't think that's the case. I think that we can decide what the third track is. We can build the third track of going like, let's work with everyone. We know now that we know better, we can do better. And so I do think there's a third track. And basically that was what the whole premise of my book is about, which is rewriting the rules, leadership, and neuroinclusive leadership framework for a human-centered workplace, is because we need to start reflecting on the systems that are built in our practices, whether that's our workflows, it's policies, procedures, it's how our buildings are made. We need to start reflecting on those, implementing. Now that we know better, we need to do better and implement for sustainability and empowerment of the next generation to come.
Wow. I feel like we could stay on this topic.
Yeah. I mean, it's so needed. And so it's just hearing it is refreshing of like you mentioning that. And that is a conversation that you're having and you're bringing out to the world of we need to be reflecting on our systems. And it's okay that, yes, it may have worked in previously, but like things we know differently. And so now it's on us to recognize there's different research out there. There's different things out there that tell us we need to look at it and improve to make the field so much better for everyone, not just.
I don't think we can design practices without neuroinclusion in mind at all. Like, I just don't think that's possible, because when we start to look at inclusiveness just around cognitive differences, it opens up accessibility to everyone on the team. Like, everyone else gets an easier cognitive load. Everyone else gets a more efficient veterinary practice. Like, it opens up accessibility for all the things that we can do just to improve the lives of the few, improves the lives of all. And there's so many examples I can give you of that, but like, it really, I don't think we can build our workplaces without neuroinclusion in mind in the future.
I agree.
Yeah. Something, and I know we were talking about the energy and like, the masking and all of that that comes with that, especially when that's not a norm. The system doesn't include that. And so we have to feel like we need a mask to fit in. And one phrase that I know I've seen, I've heard you use is invisible strain. And like a lot of people, listening, they feel that, but they don't really know how to describe that feeling. And so kind of from your perspective, what does that actually look like day to day for high performers?
Yeah, that invisible strain, most people only recognize the fact that they can have a really highly productive day or even a slow day, and you get home and you're just bone tired, right? Repeatedly, day after day. And maybe you've gone to a psychiatrist, maybe you've gotten depression medication that's not working, maybe you've tried therapy, whatever that is. And if you are still sitting there after a day of like, it's not a bad day, and we've had 3 or 4 openings in the day, and it's still bone exhausting, to me, that's the invisible strain that most of the neurodivergent people that I know have on a day-to-day basis, which is that masking piece. And it's so insidious because what we've done is we started masking probably really early in our careers, maybe in childhood, that it becomes our default mode, right? And so we don't even recognize that we have made a choice somewhere back in our past to be this way, to avoid negative criticism, right? The stats out there are a child by the age of 10 will receive 20,000 more corrections and negative feedback than their neurotypical counterpart. Like, so you've already started by the age of 10 trying to contort yourself to be what society wants you to be, so that you don't get that negative criticism. And it gets more and more and more as you go into school work and you go into your career. And because you really care about your career, right? I don't know of anybody who doesn't want to do a good job. And so the more you care, like in a profession like veterinary medicine, where we really care, I think it becomes so much more insidious about those character changes of who we are, that we don't recognize it. And all we do is feel the burnout. And switching jobs is never going to fix that. It might give you a temporary relief, but it always comes back. And you can do all the things to help you with burnout, all the mental health advice, and then all of a sudden it comes right back when you get back into practice. And so to me, that's the invisible strain that people don't recognize until you realize, like, I've done everything and I'm still exhausted and I think I need to leave veterinary medicine. And unfortunately, that's a time where I tend to see most of my clients, is when they're at the point where they want to leave vet med, but they don't want to leave vet med.
Right. That's the same here with mine too. And that's what I noticed in my journey, is that vet med exposed a lot of the things that I learned growing up, or that became my identity or my subconscious ways of thinking. And it just made it really prone and there. And so because it made it so obvious, I blamed vet med for it and said, well, you're the reason why I have these things, when it isn't. It was more the foundation of within me, and I didn't know how to set boundaries or actually know how to take care of myself, or what that looked like, or listen to myself. And so, yeah, I see clients at the same spot of they're at the point of leaving. And I realized too, leaving's not the answer. It's within us.
Well, I joke around with people. I'm like, how many times have you worked a full shift and then you get off at 5, 7 o'clock at night, or in your case, 3 a.m, or whatnot, from an overnight, and realize, like, man, I haven't even peed all day, right? Yeah. Or I haven't even eaten all day. I'm so hungry. Like, we have shut down the signals between our body and our brains. We're highly intellectual professionals, highly intellectual, and we shut down the body signals. So I like to think of our body as a smoke detector, right? When there's a little bit of stress, it's going to let us know. The problem is we've shut off that signal, and the only time we hear it is when we're burnt out and the 5-alarm fire is going on in our brain, not in the body. And then when all of a sudden you drop into your body and go, like, I can't do this anymore. And for us neurodivergent individuals, if we gotten to that point, you wind up with skill regression, right? You could be an amazing rock star veterinarian or doctor or CSR or whatnot, and you are recovering from burnout. Like, you will lose much of your skill, and that's the sad part.
It's so telling, because more of us than not are actually dealing with these issues, and we need to address them, face them. And you know what? I'll take that back. I think we need to rewrite the rules for what is a standard. And I think the models that we have, whether that be in corporate or private practice, we need to re-look at everything to get the most out of each individual. And it's funny, because as you talk about these stats, the thing that I see it in kids every day, because I coach kids, and I see the struggle. I see what looks like an unfocused kid, or a kid that can't do this or do that on the outside. But really, you gotta approach them differently, and you have to accept that different approaches are needed. And I think that's the next level for us in the world, but in veterinary medicine specifically. We have to throw out the old rule book. It doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And I would extend that over to the clients too, right? Like, we can have plenty of neurodivergent individuals who are our clients, and who are not the mean, angry, I'm trying to hurt you when they yell at you. This is, you caught them in a very vulnerable moment, and rejection sensitive dysphoria can hit a client, and it can look like an outburst, right? An emotional outburst. And I'm not saying that we should take emotional abuse. I don't co-sign that at all. And we can also recognize that our clients can be in a position of where they're hitting a rejection sensitive dysphoric moment of not feeling like a good enough parent, not doing enough for their pet, like whatever that may be, that rejection between them and their parent, that little, like, touching that human animal bond at all can trigger rejection sensitive dysphoria. And I think that we have to be able to recognize the difference between a client who is abusive and a client who's getting emotionally dysregulated.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I just had a client the other day where it's just like, I work in an open concept hospital, and usually that is enough for people to be like, oh, I can see what's going on, all of that. But they, like, our doctors are insane, and there's of course a lot of support staff, and they see one thing, but they're concerned about their pet. And so like they brought up a concern. I was like, what's going on here? Like, what, kind of starting to show frustration. And it's just like, just sitting there and listening and be like, you tell me what's going on, and I can let you know what's going on here. And it literally changed the side of it. They just want to feel seen and heard, and they feel guilty, or they might be shame underlying too, and it comes out as anger towards us when it's more anger towards themselves.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think the core needs for most individuals are the need to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel validated in their own experience, even when we don't agree with it, right? Like that to me is a huge one. Like just because we disagree with the perspective, that doesn't mean their perspective is invalid. And the need to be nurtured. Now, I'm not saying that we need to nurture all of our people, because that's not our job. But I do think that if we can look at behaviors or unwanted behaviors, right, regardless of neurodivergence, regardless of all the other factors, if we can look at it from that lens and there's an unwanted behavior in our practice, we should be able to look at it and say, there's a need that's not met here, and where can I fit in?
100%. There's a book, that's like seriously on point. And there's a book, a parenting book that I read, is called The Good Inside, that literally talks about how we're going to have to like put our behaviors, our unwanted behaviors, and tie it to our identity and who we are. And that is like not what it should be. And so how can we separate these unwanted behaviors from someone feeling like that makes them a bad person, that makes them, whatever it is. And that's how it should be in adult life too. And that helped me also, just an aspect of when someone does have a certain behavior, to be more curious about it, of like, there's an unmet need somewhere that makes them act this way. They're not being seen or heard in a certain way that makes it feel like a defense thing that they have to, react.
Yeah, it's literally what I do with most of my coaching clients now, is a lot of cognitive diffusion. Is we are not our thoughts, right? Is being able to say we have negative thoughts, we've got positive thoughts. Like, I'm neither of those. I'm just having thoughts. And to be able to cognitively diffuse them and not make them our own identity of saying like, I am too much, I am broken, I'm all the things that we tend to say to ourselves. Like, that is a lot of where my coaching comes in. We work on values, we work on cognitive diffusion, we work on emotional regulation, because those are the pieces. Like, if we know we are going to emotionally dysregulate, we know we are going to have executive functioning differences. And if we can make those less intense and shorter in duration, and also give ourselves grace from when that happens, that's what I do with my clients. So thanks for being here.
Wow. I mean, these points are really huge. I wanted to circle back on something that you said, which I believe is the roadmap, because, I dealing with neurodivergent folks, it's less about the outburst, but it's about what needs aren't getting met and the overwhelm that is felt, which leads to that reaction. It's like a buildup. And I want people to really understand what tools they need in order to navigate this neurodivergent mind. And I'll say minds, right? Because it's more people than not in our field. And I think it does get, again, masked as bad behavior.
Yeah, 100%.
And some of the things that you said was the feeling to be heard, the need to be seen, and the understanding to not react to the initial outburst, but dig and look and see where we can help, because then we actually find out that this person was not far off on what we needed systematically,
Right.
but their inability to communicate that. And you're right. And we're not saying it is true. We don't need to go take a bunch of abuse, right? Everyone needs to work on it's your responsibility to work on your own mental health journey, and not just go with it. Right. And it is a journey. So let's understand that, ladies and gentlemen. You may not find the answer the first time out. You have to continue to work on it. But I do really want people to understand the roadmap to navigating the neurodivergent mind.
Well,
And
yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. I was going to say the other thing is, like, we already mentioned that a lot of these behaviors, or a lot of the things we learn, come from being young, like young age. And you got to think that that is an identity that's formed over, by the time you realize there's something that needs to change and that you were neglecting yourself and didn't know how to support yourself. Mine, thankfully, I was younger than most. I was 28 when I realized that. And I know there's many people, it's not until they're in their late 30s or even their 40s sometimes, or later, that they realize this. So those are decades long of identity forming that you have formed for yourself. And so it does take time to unlearn that and to rewire your subconscious to believe otherwise.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a lot of like peeling back the onion, right? I think that there's two responsibilities here, right? There's the responsibility of the person with the behavior that's unwanted, right? To create repair. And then there's also responsibility of the leader of that practice to, one, minimize the impact of when rupture is happening, right? So if I have somebody who on my team, so I'll give you a perfect example. I had a CSR come to me when I owned a practice in Arizona, and I was very thankful that she told me what her struggles were, her diagnosis. And to me, that's a gift, right? Like if somebody feels comfortable enough to tell me what their diagnosis is, I feel like I'm giving enough psychological safety for that to happen. And so I would never use that against them. But when they had emotional outbursts, right, we co-created, like the first time it happened, we had a conversation. The second time, it's like, what's actually going on, right? And so what we came to is, when she revealed her diagnosis, is that she has these emotional dysregulating moments, right? And she was responsible in figuring out what the trigger was. My responsibility as her leader was to minimize that impact on the team and the clients. So if she needed to come into my office and color in the coloring book, and I had a punching bag in my office, so hit the punching bag, right? Or color in the coloring book, or let's co-create what it is that you need to re-regulate yourself to get back out on the floor, right? And so that's what we did. And we made it a safe place for her to have a dysregulated moment and then come back.
Yeah.
And a lot of that co-creation, it's individualization of your people. I can't tell you the magic bullet of you do this thing and everybody will be great.
Right.
There's no such thing. Right? Everybody's looking for that magic bullet. And it's really individualized to the team dynamics, to your hospital, to many other things. So, but decreasing cognitive load is probably number one thing that the leaders can do in their hospital, and in co-creation with the individuals.
That means you may have to reformat your hospital structure. You might actually have to have a break room. You might actually have to have a mother's nursing room and be compliant. You might actually have to invest in your team.
Absolutely. Yeah. Team investment is a thing. Like, I can't tell you how many hospitals I've gone into that have absolutely zero break room, or you've got like a counter along the back of the hospital somewhere next to the dead body freezer that houses a microwave and a sink. Like, that's not a place where anyone wants to eat. And if we really get down to it, that a lunch break is supposed to be resting and rejuvenating to come back to the second half of your shift to be on point the first half of the shift. How can you ever do that without a break room or without a place to actually rest and rejuvenate? Like, we need to look at what our hospitals are doing for the people inside them. We do a very good job nowadays, I think, with fear-free and low stress handling on looking at the pet's perspective of walking into our hospitals. What do they see, smell, touch, all the way from the front of our lobbies into the exam room and then back out. But how many of us have actually done that for our team members in our practices? What do you walk into? What door do you walk into? Does the mop bucket smack you in the face as soon as you walk in the back door? What are the smells? What are the lighting like? Like, if you get nothing else from this podcast, just change your fluorescent lighting to LEDs, please. For the love of God, just change the LED lighting. But like, get rid of your fluorescent lights in veterinary practices, please. But think about that, like all of the sensory things that happen. And we recognize this, like we have done a better job with scents and not burning candles in our practices because people have migraines or whatnot. Same sensory things can happen. I've seen it in veterinary practices where you have somebody on the team who is completely dysregulated and it's like a slower day. And it's like, well, why is this happening? Well, it's like, there's much more sensory input on that slower day when you've got the dental drill, right? And you've got the cat deoccupation and the parvo puppy coming in on the same day. Like that's a lot more sensory input on touching and cleaning up and the sounds and the smells. It's like, it's way more stimulating than if I had just a busy day of wellness, right? I may have seen more patients, but I can walk out there probably less sensory overwhelmed. And I think that's number one thing it's underlooked at is the amount of sensory overwhelm that we go through in practice.
Yeah. Yeah. This was a really informative conversation and I believe an ongoing conversation. I think we need to have these open conversations in this format so that people can really take from this what it is. And when I'll get more specific, I won't just say people, I'll say hospital owners, corporate structure, leaders, hospital managers. This is something that you need to pay attention to in order to boost revenue.
Well, that, yeah, and just retention, keeping people in the field longer, because like one thing we mentioned too, and Ron mentioned at the beginning, is like that human animal bond, especially when you're neurodivergent. Like that is something within me, like where that was the first time I've ever experienced true authentic love from something that loved me for who I am truly and didn't have to have that mask on. And so when you have these people that are coming in that are so caring and all of that, like these are the people you want in the field. These are the people that are gonna work their damn hardest to make sure we give these patients and the best outcome, give them the best care with so much love. But if we aren't thinking and seeing what they need for support or what that looks like, and we're not adapting with it, we're going to lose all those people, and we're going to be left with those that are burnt out or don't care. And then we have so much things happening that we don't want within the field and why we didn't join in the first place. And not only that, I think just giving for anyone watching too, that is the support staff that's neurodivergent or just in general feels like they aren't feeling seen or heard. Like you also have a responsibility for yourself to speak up for you, because at the end of the day, you are your advocate, just like you are for your patients that don't have a voice. And so please advocate for yourself as well.
Absolutely.
Ron, if you could leave us with a final word for all of our listeners, for anyone who may be feeling misunderstood, misaligned, what would you say to them?
I would say no shame in where you're at today, right? Now take where you are today and figure out how you can be your best self tomorrow. And that does not mean squeezing every inch of efficiency out of yourself. It means truly finding who you are and how you want to operate.
There it is. Ron, thank you for meeting with us and having this conversation. We'd like to do a part 2. We didn't even get through all the things and we went totally off script, but the conversation around neurodivergency and efficiency and how to navigate this field with that is something that needs more attention. Also, I want to highlight your book. We see it behind you. If you can let everybody know about it.
Yeah, it's called Rewriting the Rules, a leadership model for a neuroinclusive, human-centered workplace. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, all the places where you can find books.
Yeah.
And then I've got a workbook called What's Left Unattended. And that is really like if you are looking to do some identity work and maybe you can't afford a coach, and that's totally fine. this is going to help you. It has almost all of my exercises I do with my coaching clients right in a book here. That's found right on my website at syn-apt. It's syn-apt.me. And I directly ship it out of my home, but that is, it's really to help you find who you are, how to deal with your energy management, how to find who you are, your values, permission slips, the whole nine.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ryan and Katelyn from Athletic Conceptual Training. Don't forget, we are here for all of your hospital stabilization needs. If hospital owners, if you leaders, if you are in need of stabilizing your hospital from a cultural and financial structural standpoint, definitely reach out to us. We will be able to help you, and we can do it in under 90 days. This is Athletic Conceptual Training. We thank you, and Ron, thank you again. Everybody have a good day.
Thank you.